Okay, so thank you for everyone for joining us tonight. For anyone who was on last night and or tried to get on last night and got messed up, my apologies. There were a bunch of lines crossed last night, and so I'm sorry. It was weird. It was my fault. If you had any technical difficulties, you didn't do anything wrong. We did. So my apologies. Anyway, I wanted to talk. First of all, this week's learning is sponsored by Avi Ashkenazi for the Refuah Shlema of Ezra Ben Margalit and Neil Tobias in my honor. So thank you guys for sponsoring. And tonight's class is also additionally sponsored by Seymour Samuel. So thank you, Seymour, for the sponsorship. I wanted to get us in the right frame of mind thinking about Shavuot and what it's about. And I was thinking about where to pull a class from for Shavuot. And I found an article by someone that I think is probably not so well known, but should be well known to us, and I'll explain. The article that I'm going to be pulling from, it's based on a Gemara, but it's from a rabbi named Rabbi Nahum Rabinovich. By that name, many of you probably don't know who he is, but he actually just passed away in the last couple of weeks. And Rabbi Rabinovich is a very important rabbi because he established a very important school in Israel called Yeshivat Ma'aleh Adumim, or Birkat Moshe in Ma'aleh Adumim. A number of our community rabbis have gone there, and plenty of leaders that are not rabbis. So I could count my son as one of them. My son Teddy went there, but Jesse Salem went there, who started TanachStudy.org. Rabbi Albert Seton, Rabbi Charles Safdie, I believe Mohel Morris Abraham, a lot of really quality community young men have gone to study Torah there and learned in his yeshiva. But he has other famous students, the most famous of which we've all probably learned from at one time or another, and that's Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. Rabbi Sachs learned from Rabbi Rabinovich, who was originally from Toronto, Canada, a brilliant scholar, and he moved to Israel and opened this yeshiva there. And he just passed away in the last couple of weeks. So the words of Torah that I'm going to try and share with you tonight are his viewpoint of a very famous Gemara. So the famous Gemara that I'd like to share with you tonight, I'm going to throw up on the screen. Joey, keep your eye on the road. Don't worry, I'll read it. Don't try and read it while we're doing it. But I'm going to share.
All right, I'll trust you.
I'm going to share a Gemara with you, which you may know parts of it. It's from Masechet Shabbat. It should be on your screen right now. And I'd like to call it the silly rabbit tricks are for kids Gemara. And you'll see what I mean when I say the silly rabbit tricks are for kids Gemara. You may remember that there's a very famous commercial for cereal where there's a cartoon rabbit who continually tries to take the cereal away from the children. And we don't let them take the rabbit. We don't let the rabbit take the cereal away from the children because the commercials guy says, "Silly rabbit, the tricks are for kids. Cereal, especially sugar cereals, are for kids, not for cartoon rabbits." So what does that have to do with the Gemara? Pay attention, and you'll see. Of course, I'm going to make a bigger picture and a bigger issue than just tricks, but let's see what we have to say. It says, "Va'amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi." Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi said, "B'sha'a sha'ala Moshe Rabbeinu lamarom." At the time that Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Shamayim to get the Torah, Amru malachei hasharet l'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The ministering angels said to Hashem, Ribono shel olam, Master of the world, Mali lod isha benenu. What is this born of a woman creature doing amongst us angels, right? Amar lahen lekabel Torah ba. Hashem says to the angels, Moshe Rabbeinu came to receive the Torah. Amru rafanav. The angels say to Hashem, Chemda genuza. He says this special treasure that's been buried for 974 generations before the world was created. You're going to go and give it to flesh and blood? It quotes a pasuk. What is a human being that you should even mention him? What is a human being that you should count him, give him a job to do? Hashem Adonenu Ma'adir Shemcha B'chol Ha'aretz Asher Tzna Hodecha L'Shamayim. Hashem, you are the master. How glorious you are above all the earth. Put your glory in the heavens. Right? And the pasuk, of course, saying, put your glory in the heavens and you're above the earth is, tack with the earth, make sure to keep the Torah in the Shamayim. In other words, the angels are saying to Hashem, Hashem, what's this Moshe Rabbeinu guy coming here for? And Hashem says to get the Torah. And the angels say, what? You're giving the Torah to Moshe to give to people? But people don't deserve the Torah. The Torah is too special. It's been preserved, and we're going to come back to this, for 974 generations before the world was created. What are you giving it to human beings for? So it's a good question. And as we can all attest to, human beings are very flawed and have an incredible ability to mess things up. So he says like this, Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe, hachzer lahen teshuvah. Rather than answering them himself, Hashem turns to Moshe and says, Moshe, okay, what do you have to say to them? Give them an answer, right? The angels are questioning Hashem, and Hashem, instead of answering them, even though it's what he's doing, he turns to Moshe and he says, Moshe, give him an answer. What do you think? So Hamar lefalav, so Moshe says to Hashem, Ribono shel olam, master of the universe, mityareh ani shema yisrefuni b'havel shebefihem. Says, I'm afraid to answer you because if I to answer them, because if I do, they may burn me with the heat that comes out of their mouths. Okay, so Moshe is reluctant to give the answer that it seems like he has, because he doesn't say I don't have an answer. He says, I'm afraid if I answer, they're going to burn me. Right, okay. Amar lo, so Hashem says to him, Echoz b'kiseh kevodi v'hazor lahen teshuvah. He says, hold on to my throne, hold on to my chair, and give them an answer, right? In other words, Hashem originally told Moshe, give them an answer. Moshe said, I'm scared. Hashem says to Moshe, hold on to the chair and give an answer. It seems like holding on to the chair is the way not to be afraid. We have to explain what all this means, of course, but first let's go through the story, then we'll ask a couple of questions, and then we'll piece it all together. Shne'emar, as the pasuk says, "Me'achez pnei kiseh parshez alav anano." Says the one who holds on to the throne, I'll put light on him. I'll put the cloud on him. Ba'amar Rabbi Nachum, and Rabbi Nachum says, "Melamed." It teaches us, "Sheperas Shaddai miziv shechinato va'anano alav." Hashem shone His light and His cloud upon Moshe Rabbeinu. Again, Hashem shone a light and some kind of cloud on Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, we got a lot to explain here. We're gonna explain, but now we're getting to the punchline almost. Amar lefanav. So Hashem says. So Moshe says to Hashem in front of the angels, Ribono shel olam, Torah she'ata noten li, ma ketiv ba. He says, so what's written in this Torah that you're giving me? Anochi Hashem Elohecha asher hotzeticha mi'eretz Mitzrayim. It says in the Torah, I am Hashem who took you out of Egypt. Amar lahem. So he says to the angels, the Mitzrayim yeradtem. Did you guys go down to Egypt? Were you in Egypt? The Pharaoh hishtabadtem. Were you enslaved to Pharaoh in Egypt? Torah lama tehelachem. So what purpose does the Torah have for you? The Torah is for people that were in Egypt. Angels, you weren't in Egypt. Silly rabbit, tricks are for kids. Right? Moshe is telling the angels, the Torah doesn't apply to you. And it keeps going. Shuv. Ma ketiv ba. It says, what else does it write in the Torah? Lo yeh lecha Elohim acherim. You shall not have any other gods. Ben hagoyim atem shiruyim. You guys, you angels, live amongst the non-Jews. Shovdin avodah zarah, that they worship avodah zarah. So what are you worried about? You don't need to be told not to do avodah zarah. You would never think to do avodah zarah. Shuv ma ketiv ba. It says more in the Torah. Zachoret yom ha-Shabbat l'kadesho. Remember or mention, keep the Shabbat in order to sanctify it. Klum atem osim melacha. Do you guys do any work? Shatem tzrichim shivut, that you would need to have any kind of resting on Shabbat? Again, silly rabbit, tricks are for kids. The Torah talks about Shabbat. Angels don't need Shabbat. Shuv ma ketiv ba. Says, you know what else it says? Lo tisa. Says, don't lift up. Masal matan yesh benachem. Do you guys do business between one another that you have to worry about doing business honestly? Shuv, silly rabbit, tricks are for kids. Shuv, ma ketiv ba. He says, what else does it write? Kabed et avicha ve'et imecha. Respect and honor your mother and father. Av va'em yesh lachem. Do you guys, angels, have a father and mother? You don't. Silly rabbit, tricks are for kids. Shuv, ma ketiva, says, what else does it say? Lo tirtzach, lo tinaf, lo tignov. Don't murder, don't have adultery, don't steal. Kin'a yesh bachem. You guys have any jealousy? You don't. So what are you worried? These things don't happen. Yetzer hara yesh benechem. You guys have any yetzer hara? You don't. Silly rabbit, tricks are for kids, right? So Moshe Rabbeinu basically says to the angels, just like tricks aren't for the cartoon rabbit, the Torah with all the mitzvot in it isn't for angels. The Torah is for people. Miyad hodu lo hakadosh baruch hu. Then Hashem thanks or agrees to Moshe Rabbeinu's argument. Shneimar Adonai Adonenu ma'adir shemcha bilu tanahu dechal shamayim lo ketiv. He says, but it says Hashem says how glorious is your heavens, but it doesn't say put your glory on in the heavens. Miyad kol echad v'echad na'asa lo ohev ma'asa lo davar. Immediately after, every one of the angels became beloved to Moshe, and they each gave him something. Shne'emar, as it says in the pasuk that we're going to read on tomorrow night, it's the Mizmor for 68, which talks about Shavuot, which we read Shavuot. Alita lamarom, you went up to the heavens. Shavita shevi, you captured something. He captured the Torah. Lakachta matanot ba'adam, you took gifts for the human beings. What gifts did you take? The angels each gave Moshe Rabbeinu a gift. Ischar shekra'ucha adam lakachta matanot. Because you were an Adam. The pasuk says that humans got a gift. He says because you were humans, you got a gift. Because you showed that the Torah was for humans, you got gifts. And then there's a very interesting postscript. It says, Af malach hamavet masar lo hatavar. Even the angel of death gave Moshe a gift. Shneimar, vayiten et haketoret vaychaper al ha'am. He gave Moshe, we see that Moshe, during one of the plague that we're going to read about in a couple of weeks, where there was a nachash, and there was also, when Korach happened. So Moshe takes a pan of fire and he puts it in between the plague and the people, and it stops the people. It stops the plague. It saves the people. And this separated between the living and the dead. How could Moshe Rabbeinu know that trick to stop a plague if it wasn't the angel of death who told him the trick? So that's the story that you have in the Gemara. It's a very interesting story. It's a very weird story. So I want to go over what the story says, and then I want to try and make some sense out of it. Again, the story begins with Moshe Rabbeinu going up to Shamayim. He's ready to get to Torah, and all of a sudden the angels see him coming, and they say to Hashem, let's deal with this guy. Why is he what's he here for? And Hashem tells him he's getting the Torah. And the angels say, no way, the humans don't deserve the Torah. And Hashem tells Moshe, answer them. And Moshe says, I'm scared. Hashem says, hold the throne, grab the throne, which is the title of the class tonight. Grab the throne and answer them. And Moshe then does. And what does Moshe do? Moshe does the silly rabbit tricks are for kids argument. He goes through a lot of mitzvot and he shows them, hey, these mitzvot are specific for people, not for angels. These mitzvot there's nothing to do with angels. Right? So he says, so what are you doing? Who do you think the Torah is for? And Hashem says, you see, he's right. And the angels say, you're right. And the angels say, Moshe, we give you gifts. And even the angel of death gives Moshe Rabbeinu a gift. So the question that we have is, what's the story with this Gemara, right? Like, what is this Gemara really trying to teach us, right? In other words, did the angels really think that they would, if Hashem said, I'm giving the Torah, Hashem doesn't know what he's doing? Did Moshe, what's his answers? It seems like this Gemara is a television commercial. So Gemarot and Midrashim are deeper than television commercials. They certainly have lessons to teach us. So the question is, what are the lessons that this Gemara has to teach us? Before we answer the lessons that the Gemara has to teach us, one of the ways that we've practiced this type of thing is to ask questions, right? So we have this story that we just heard. What questions do you have for this story? Feel free to unmute yourself and say, listen, I got the story. I understand what happened, but I don't understand why is it saying that. Anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask on this story. Anyone, feel free, unmute yourself and pitch in. Anything that jumps out at you at this story as strange, weird, needs explanation, hey, what's that doing here? Anything like that?
The question I have is what do we need that story for? We know that the Torah is for man.
Right. Isn't it obvious? What do I need the angels to tell me, or this whole story of angels to tell me the Torah is for human beings? Did any of us think that would, that the Torah would not be for us? Abe, I think you're right. I think that's a definite question. What else? What other questions that we might ask on this Gemara as to not only why it's here, but what's it saying to us? So let me spur you on with a couple of thoughts.
Is it reminding us? Is it reminding us, Rabbi, of all the things that we have to be thankful for? Reminding us of taking us out of Egypt, reminding us of the kavod, the avicha. It's reminding us of some important aspects of the Torah and bringing it out.
It could definitely be that could definitely be part of the role of what this Gemara is about. But again, there's so many ways to do that. This weird story of like fighting over the Torah, it seems strange, right? It seems strange to have to put it this way. There has to be some underlying message or idea that it's trying to get across, because we know that the Torah is for human beings. Would we have thought that the Torah is not for human beings? Like any person who could read it, who could open it up, could say what Moshe Rabbeinu said. Of course it's not for angels. They weren't in Egypt. Of course it's not for angels. They don't have human beings. The days of the week don't mean anything to them. So what would Shabbat mean? And so on and so forth. So
it's a message of Lo B'Shamayim. It explains what the essence of the Torah is, in that it's a guide of how to live your daily life. It's not something that's esoteric and theoretical. It's a practical, hands-on guide of what to do every day with your day-to-day dealings.
So possible, it's, one aspect of this Gemara, and I think one way to explain the Gemara is, sometimes people think that the Torah is about perfection and for people that are super holy and super saintly, but not for regular people, and in that sense, the angels would be symbolizing the way sometimes you hear people talk about great rabbis, or tzaddikim or things like that, of people that we say, oh, we can't understand them, we can't connect to them. And so perhaps the Torah is saying, perhaps this Gemara is saying is, that's not who the Torah is for, right? The Torah is for us regular people. So it's possible that that's a purpose of the Gemara, but I think there's a deeper and more underlying message that's going on here of what the angels symbolize. And this is the approach that Rabbi Rabinovich takes. He says,
Rabbi,
listen.
Rabbi, one thing that I noticed is that it's establishing that the Torah was created before man. In other words, it was much. Yes,
good. That's a very important point. Not only does it say it was established before man, if you remember, it said there were 974 generations before the world was created, which is an interesting concept. This is one of the Gemarot that you could use when someone wants to talk about, the age of the universe. Some of us will remember, I see IG is on here. Well, once we did a trip to Israel, and one of the places, everywhere we would go, they would show us, like the geological formations of the earth. And someone asked, and the rabbi one of the rabbis was a guide. So someone said, gee, that seems like it would take a long time to have happen. How long ago did this happen? So he said, oh, that must have happened 20 million years before the creation of the universe. Which, we know that the Jewish calendar uses this 5780 number. So that is the 974 generations is what's before the 5780, which means that the 5780 is a little bit loose. So this Gemara could be potentially teaching that, but that's not the point that the Gemara is trying to make. It's trying to make a different point, which is that well before human beings were conceived, the Torah was created, right? Which is interesting, because if you read the Torah, it seems like It's very specific to a certain time and to a certain group of people. And if it's so far before the human beings, it's a little strange. But nevertheless, that point plays an important role in the Gemara as well, of what is this 974 concepts. So let me explain to you how Rabbi Rabinovich explains this Gemara, which I think is fascinating and very important for us to understand. He says, listen, the angels are trying to say something about themselves and the Torah. He says, listen, angels are effectively perfect, right? Angels, like we see, they have no mitzvot to do because there's no yetzer hara, there's no human character, there's no flaws in them. They're angels. They everything is right. It says, and they want the Torah to be for people that are perfect. And what Hashem wants Moshe to realize, because Hashem could have answered himself, that's a big part of this Gemara, is why doesn't Hashem answer the angels himself? He knows, right? What are you asking Moshe for? Right? And Moshe has an inkling, but he can't answer right away, right? What does Hashem tell him? Hashem tells him, grab the throne, right? And this is a big question I was hoping someone was going to ask, but I'm sure you were wondering, right? Why does Hashem have to tell Moshe, grab onto the throne? What does grab onto the throne really mean? So what Rabbi Rabinovich says is a very interesting idea. He says, when do you grab onto something? Right? When do you grab onto something? When you don't feel steady, when you're climbing, when you're trying to reach for something. He says you grab onto something to pull you up and to hold you up. And he says that's what Hashem was telling Moshe Rabbeinu. He was hinting to him that you are a human being and you are flawed, but the Torah is made for you because the Torah is a document for imperfect beings. The Torah is made for people that are not all the way there. The Torah is made for people who need the Torah in order to show them the way to be. And says what Rabinovich says is that Moshe Rabbeinu is not only saying that this is the way the Torah works for human beings, but actually it's not appropriate for angels because the Torah, the 974, is teaching us that the Torah itself is developing. Right? Meaning the Torah is continually evolving in some way. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples. This one example says Rabbi Rabinovich. He says we see in the Torah that what did Hashem really want from human beings? Did he want polygamy? Did he want people to marry multiple wives? He says you see from the beginning of Bereshit that Hashem did not want that. It says in the beginning that Adam, Chava, man created Adam from Chava from Adam. Hashem created Chava from Adam. He says, and as a result, men and women become one flesh after. You see from the beginning of the Torah, Hashem wanted man, woman, one, finished. But what do we see the Torah allows later? It allows polygamy. He says, but what do we see happens over time is that the Torah, even though it allows it, it frowns upon it and it's not interested in it. And anytime it happens, it's bad news. And ultimately, we develop, the humans develop, and we are able to develop the Torah to the point that the polygamy is no longer accepted and no longer good. And you could do the same thing that Rambam would say about sacrifices, right? The Rambam says, listen, in the beginning we see they have to express a way to say thanks to Hashem, to pray to Hashem, so it's through sacrifices. But we see all the way through Hashem's trying to tell them, sacrifices, yeah, it's good, you need it, you'll do it, but tefillah might be a higher level. And we see it develops, and humans develop, and then the Torah develops with it. And what Rabinovich is telling us is like human beings, the Torah itself, not just is unlike the angels. The character of the Torah is that it's constantly developing. It's constantly subtly getting to what Hashem really wants. And the way to do that is this echoz bakiseh. Hold on to the chair. Hold on to the throne. Constantly seek what Hashem wants. Constantly try and pull ourselves up by leaning on Hashem, by holding on to Hashem and holding on to His values. By doing that, we can assure that we live the right life. We can assure we live the life that the Torah is guiding us to. And just as we will develop, human beings have to develop. We have to develop our character individually, but humans as a whole, as a race, have developed over time. We are much, much more developed ethically, morally, than they were a long time ago, right? And or even recently, right? The human beings today, most human beings today understand slavery is a terrible thing, right? And 150 years ago, a lot of human beings didn't understand that, right? And you could say the same thing in the Torah, right? The Torah looks down upon slavery. It's a horrible thing in the Torah, but it allowed it because at the time it was in the world. But the fact that we've developed and we've evolved, that's something the Torah wanted, and that's something the Torah expected, and that's something angels could never have gotten to. So when we're thinking about the holiday of Shavuot, which is all about Matan Torah, accepting the Torah, this Gemara has a lot to say to us. It says that the Torah is an unfinished business. It's like human beings, it's a constantly developing, evolving document. And that doesn't mean that it's not great, because it's evolving within itself to be what its original purpose is. Because Hashem wants the most just, the most ethical, the most moral, the most perfect world, but he made it imperfect, and he gave us in it, and he put the Torah with it, and he wants us, along with the Torah, to be able to develop and to grow and to be better and better and better. So when we're accepting the Torah, which we redo every year, we reaffirm our commitment to the Torah, we have to ask ourselves, what's our commitment to? And our commitment is to growing closer and closer to perfection, to recognizing that innately we're flawed. But being flawed is not a bad thing. Being flawed allows us to develop, which is what Hashem wants us to do. And the way to do it is to grab the throne of Hashem, to hold on to Hashem, to hold on and see, what does Hashem want from us? What did he put us here for? What did he give this to us for? How can we use it to make ourselves better? How can we use it to make the world better? By thinking that way, that's what it means to accept the Torah. That's what the Torah is all about. It's the true nature of the Torah, is that struggle, is that need to climb, that need to hold on to something, that recognition that we're constantly developing and making ourselves better. So this year, which, none of us are, in our first year accepting the Torah. Some of you, this is not your first Shavuot, right? You've had a few, right? And we wonder, what do I have to accept the Torah every year for? No. Accepting the Torah every year is symbolic of the idea that you have to constantly commit to it. You have to constantly work towards it, because that's the nature of it. It's not something that you get and you put on your shelf and you say, I've got it. The Torah is something that continually needs to be worked on, just like we continually need to be worked on. Anyway, that's the message that what Rabbi Rabinovich gives on the Gemara. I hope it's a message that we can take home for the holiday of Shavuot, and that we use to take with us on a day-to-day in our study of Torah, but in living the best possible life. Happy to take any questions, thoughts, comments. Yes, Joe.
In the beginning, when he had the Torah, he offered it to so many people, and everybody refused. The only people that said Na'aseh v'nishma without asking any question are the Jewish people. How come the Malachim are asking God, why are you giving this to these people? He could give them the answer right away.
You're saying in the other Gemara, how come Hashem, how come the angels don't fight?
They said Na'aseh v'nishma, but they didn't ask any questions.
It's a great question. I didn't think of that. It's a different Gemara, so it's easy to just say it's a different Gemara. But maybe the answer is the angels were not afraid of Hashem giving it to the other nations, because the angels knew that the other nations weren't going to accept it. Meaning that the angels, and what does that mean in this Gemara? That the other nations were not interested in growth and development and struggle and character improvement. It's not what they're about. They do, and this, by the way, can speak to a very big difference between us and all the other nations, right? All other nations, you find the rise and the fall, right? These other nations grow and they get powerful, but then they don't evolve enough. They don't change. And you could go throughout history. How many nations have been great and then they're not anymore? And yet the Jewish people chug along, right? How do we do that? And perhaps the answer is, from this Gemara, is the Torah, right? The way that the Jewish people chug along is we're never satisfied. We're constantly looking to be a little bit better, to improve a little bit more, because that's the nature of the Torah, which is the nature of our people. That's who we are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good question. Good question. Didn't think of it. Okay. Listen, I want to wish everyone a great holiday. Happy and healthy. Bezat Hashem, we're getting close to getting back to the Bet Knesset. We're not there yet, but hopefully soon. And hopefully we'll be able to celebrate all together in the not too distant future. Because we're missing it. We need to be seeing one another. We need to be back together. Yeah.
Rabbi, what's your advice on, now the holiday's coming up, a lot of people are doing like outside minyanim, is it good to do it or
so
or
if
not?
you're I'll say like this, there's no question that the spread of the virus has gotten a little bit better, and yet at the same time we don't want it to get worse. And if you studied even a little bit about pandemics, one of the things that you'll see is that the nature of pandemics is it's not one and done. They usually come in waves. So we have to be careful to not reignite new waves. So I think that's something that's significant. So the guidelines that the government is giving us, we should still be pretty careful about. And the things like washing our hands and wearing the masks and not handshaking and things like that is very significant, and maintaining spacing between people. But the truth is, to be outside, it's at this point, it's doable if we're careful about it. So if you're in a situation where you can be careful and be outside and something like that, where you could be with 10, 15 people, I think it's okay. It's something that I'm contemplating doing. But be careful, so I do think it's possible. I'm going to be sending out 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, like we did for Pesach, kind of a document that kind of gives guidelines for the holiday, including page numbers in the Machzor. And also, I know a lot of people don't have the Shavuot Machzor, so it has the page numbers in the Kol Yaakov Sidur, if anyone needs that. So even if you don't have the Machzor, if you just have the Kol Yaakov Sidur, it should be able to help you out.
Rabbi Beyda, thank you. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. Chag Sameach.
Thank you. Chazak Baruch.
Chag Sameach, everyone.
Rabbi,
What was the other Gemara that talked
thank you very much, Rabbi.
about? What
Take
was,
care, Joe.
what was
I
the other
made it
Gemara?
home.
Alfred, you said what was the other Gemara? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
What was the other Gemara that spoke about Matan Torah?
Oh, there's a number of Gemarot that speak about it. Actually, even within that Gemara itself that I quoted, that's a piece of a longer piece. So actually, there's a number of places where the idea of Matan Torah is talked about. So I don't want to talk about one specific place. It's a topic that there's literally pages of Gemarot and Midrashim on it. So it's hard to say any one other. But Joe was referring to the one that talked about the Na'aseh v'nishma, and the fact that it said we will do and we will listen. So what does that mean exactly? We will do and we will listen, because normally you say we'll listen and we'll do. So the Chachamim explained that the Jews were so committed to keeping the Torah is that they were going to do it even if they didn't fully get it or didn't understand it. That's the point of that Gemara that we saw. Okay.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Like I said, tomorrow morning we're going to be sending out an email with a lot of resources that'll help for the holiday. It has the Eruv Tavshilin. It has the various different directions and times for the holiday. And it has, if you didn't see the video of the speech that I gave yesterday, which is, nice to listen to before the holiday.
Zaka Baruch.
Take care, everyone.
Everybody.
Rabbi, I think High Cassin wants to speak to you.